Just a few weeks off the heels of Turkish President Recep Erdogan's visit to the White House, the Pentagon has started arming Kurdish militia forces in Syria. This in spite of Erdogan expressing his disapproval of the plan. Manila Chan joins us tonight with more. Manila?
Yeah, that's right, Ed. This move of arming the Kurds can potentially make this long-time relationship with Turkey just that much more complicated. Last night, reports surfaced that the DoD has begun to send what they're calling small arms to Kurdish fighters along the Syrian border, known as the YPG. They're perhaps the fiercest fighting force in the region and have been the most effective at pushing back ISIS. Over the last few years, the YPG has been asking for help from the U.S. for their efforts to stave off the terrorist organization in the way of arms, aids, weaponry, but due to U.S. relations with Turkey, previous administrations were hesitant to do so because the Turks consider the YPG to be an extension of the PKK, whom they, along with the U.S. State Department, deem to be a terrorist group.
That's where the bone of contention is between Erdogan and the United States government. Yeah. Erdogan says they're one and the same. The United States says no, they are Syrian Kurds, although they're linked. They have close ties with the PKK in Turkey. They are not the PKK, and they're not on the U.S. terrorism list. There's a major. That's why we're continuing to arm them. But he wants us. But because Erdogan believes they're one and the same.
Now, it's unclear at this time just what exactly is being moved to the Kurds, but according to the Pentagon, it'll be guns, ammunition, vehicles, and other equipment. No details being given just yet. So why is the U.S. now stepping in to arm the Kurds if Turkey is uncomfortable with this move? Well, former Pentagon official Michael Maloof says it'll be for one mission, Raqqa.
What the United States wants to do is arm those Kurds to take Raqqa. But in deference to what Erdogan's concerns are, the United States says they'll take those heavy arms back once they have completed the assignment of taking Raqqa, which is nonsense. They will disappear into the woodwork.
Now, all signs do point to Raqqa being the motivation behind this move, but there has yet to be any official comment from the DoD or the Trump administration, nor have we heard anything out of President Erdogan, who, similar to our president, is quite active on Twitter himself. So I think we ought to keep a close eye on the YPG. They've got a lot of online presence and support as well. We'll be able to see for ourselves the U.S. supplied arms very shortly, I imagine.
Thanks, Manila. For more on the latest in Afghanistan and Syria, we're joined tonight by former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras. Jim, nice to have you here again tonight. Let's talk Afghanistan first. Two big stories tonight. We've got 8,000 troops in Afghanistan. What's the next move, you think, for the Trump administration? Are we going to see an escalation on the heels of this big bombing?
They've been certainly talking about that for some time, although from what was said in this report, that maybe they're rethinking that. I hope they're not rethinking of saying, well, we need to put more than 3,000 in, but rather to take a step back and say, what are we trying to achieve here? Simply trying to pacify things by putting a surge, putting a few thousand more troops in, create the semblance of stability, doesn't really get you to where you need to go, which is some kind of political settlement.
Would this be a response to the big bomb the military dropped in Afghanistan not long ago, and Trump was talking about how it all unfolded? The military made the decision, he knew it was going to happen, but it was the biggest bomb that ordinance we'd ever dropped.
I don't know if you could draw a one-to-one correspondence to that. It's possible. I think this is the kind of thing, especially if ISIS was behind it. I would look at it more in terms of a broader question of blowback. Remember, ISIS as a group was formed in Iraq and Syria. Now they've come to Afghanistan, which was the birthplace of al-Qaeda, of which ISIS was an outgrowth in the first place. This is blowback of blowback of blowback. It's hard to keep track of it.
Okay, how does this play with Turkey? We'll turn to Turkey now. Erdogan does not like what the United States is doing, and this is just on the heels of a meeting that Trump had with Erdogan. What's the expected response? Does this just complicate things?
It does, but I don't think there's any surprises here. When Mr. Erdogan was here, I'm sure Mr. Trump made it quite clear to him, we are going to do this. We know you don't like it. I'm sure there'll be some guarantees given, not only about taking back the weapons once the offensive on Raqqa is done. We'll see whether that turns out to be the case or not. Ensuring the Kurds don't go too far west and so forth.
So how far do you think the United States military will go in helping the Kurds take Raqqa?
Oh, I think we'll go pretty far. And I think the main reason is Trump, I think, politically needs for Raqqa to fall, to be taken away from ISIS, and he doesn't want to put American boots on the ground to do it. We have people embedded with the Kurds, but he does not want this to be primarily an American fight on the ground. You need somebody on the ground.
Are we just using the Kurds? Let's say we arm the Kurds, give them the resources, they go in and take Raqqa, we defeat ISIS, and then Turkey turns on the Kurds and there's a big battle there. Where does that leave it? I know I'm putting the horse, the cart in front of the horse a little bit, but the fact is that this is really the domino effect that could play out in this. I mean, how loyal do you think the Trump administration will be to the Kurds in the long run?
Well, the Kurds' track record in that regard is not good. Ever since World War I, when the Kurds wanted their own state, they felt betrayed by every patron they've ever had. We'll see if that turns out to be the case here, too.
Do you think the Trump administration will get to the point where they would tell the Kurds that, look, our goal is to make sure that you have your own state? I mean, because many people believe that that's the only thing that's going to bring peace to the region, and it was a mistake that was made in Iraq.
I don't think they'll go that far, but remember, the more established Kurdish entity is the one in northern Iraq, and there's been more and more talk that it might declare statehood depending on what happens to Mosul, the developments within Iraq. I think this is all tied together, and the Kurds in Syria are certainly aware of that.
Could this support of the Kurds be the first big mistake Trump makes with the military?
No, I think there are some other big mistakes that have been already. Again, talking about a surge in Afghanistan, getting in bed with the Saudis as a foil against terrorism supported by the Saudis. I think there are a lot of mistakes to go around here, Ed.
Jim Jatras, great to have you with us tonight. Thanks so much.